All right, good evening, everybody. It is June 8th, 2022. Today, the markets pretty much across the board were down. If we look at the S&P 500 E-mini futures contract, we're about flat. We're down about $1. Looking to YM. Ticker symbol YM is the Dow Jones Industrial Average. E-minis, we are also about flat, trading at 32,891. But going to the NASDAQ 100, we're about flat as well, down about 10 points. So a lot of market volatility today, a lot of intraday volatility. But tonight we're going to be covering a few topics here. Number one, obviously piggybacking off from yesterday, we did cover the manufacturing PMI that did come out last week. Now the ISM obviously stands for the Institute for Supply Management. They always release their manufacturing PMI numbers on the first business day of the month. So we received the May 2022 manufacturing numbers from the ISM report on business. It did signal that the manufacturing part of the U.S. economy was growing, which was a good thing, coming in at about 56.1. But as we always talk about on the streams, the number one thing to look for in these reports are what the respondents are saying. So if we look at some of the comments of what the respondents are saying, there was a couple comments that stood out to me the most. So one of which is that this guy who's in fabricated metals products, they said that Shanghai has been shut down since mid-March. All of the population is in lockdown with no production or port activities. Steel remains in allocation, however, electronics lead times are more than 12 months out. Another one that was a little bit concerning to me is that prices haven't let up yet. I thought 2022 was going to be better, but it hasn't been. Shortages, among other issues, are still disrupting the supply chain, and that was from the plastics and rubbers sector of the manufacturing economy in the United States. So if you type ISM in the chat, I actually programmed the Nightbot to give you guys the link to the report, in which case you could walk through it, read the comments yourself. Obviously, this report is so important because the manufacturing sector makes up 20% of economic activity in the economy. So as the manufacturing sector expands and grows, so does the stock market. It's about an 85% correlation there. So let's see who we have in the chat. Let's see all of our friends in the chat. Hey, we have Jimmy is here, says hey. Mr. Ming says, hey Tom, what's up? Good to see you, Mr. Ming. Crystal Beauty is here, says hello. Dutchman is here, says good evening, Tom. Welcome, Dutchman. We have Brian, we have FredX. Sinjib is here from Montreal. We have Thomas, says hey Tom. The ABX girl is here, good to see you. FredX says, hey Tom, good night, good to see you. Tamara says, happy Wednesday and good evening, Tom. I think we have a little bit of a heat lightning storm also coming out here, which will be cool to see. I see Bit of Wanders here. Sabrina Fair, welcome, welcome. Ryan Royal says, good evening, Tom and everybody. 61 is here. Michelle McGraw, Tucson is here. So really quick, I also wanted to touch on a crazy article that came out. So we always talk about the real estate market on the channel, but something that really struck me in particular, and I wish I could give you a shout out in the comments. You sent me this article on my IG page, my direct message. So if you guys ever want me to cover a specific topic or talk about it on the stream, feel free to send me articles and we'll talk about it. But check this out, everybody. The median New York City rent is now $3,900, so to be exact, $3,925 a month. That's up 31.9% year over year. So think about that for a second. If you're going to move to New York City, let's say you already live in New York City, but your lease is up or something like that. The median rent for a one-bedroom, just a one-bedroom apartment, is almost $4,000. I mean, that's insane. So the median New York City rent is now $3,925 a month. That is up 31.9% year over year. So if we think about the classic 40 times rule in the rental market, and I think it's starting to rain here. So if we think about the classic 40 times rule, right, in order to apply for an apartment, you need to make at least 40 times the rental income. If you don't, it doesn't necessarily mean that you cannot get into an apartment. It just may be a little bit harder for you to do so. And one of the things that you could do is get like a guarantor or something like that. But if you just want to move to New York City, live on your own or live by yourself, that means you're probably going to have to make at a minimum of $157,000 a year to make or meet that 40 times rent requirement. So as we're seeing in all of these major cities, and it's not just exclusive to New York, you know, it's happening here too in Miami. I mean, I think the median rent is very similar, maybe actually a little bit more expensive than New York City. So we are having an extreme, I would call this an extreme affordability crisis in my view. Hey, Michelle K is here. What's up, Michelle? Always a pleasure to see you. I'm doing really good. I just left work. I just left the office right now. We are right outside of the 200 Southeast Financial Center here in downtown Miami. And we have a little bit of a lightning storm, or a heat lightning storm, I guess. We have Bernard Friedman is here, says, hey Tom, good to see you, Bernard. Sunshine after rain, says, happy Wednesday. Happy Wednesday indeed. Happy Wednesday indeed. Hopefully your week is going well so far. Can't believe how crazy it is going by very fast. Mystery Girl says, that's insane. What is renting in Suffolk County? You know, so Suffolk County is east of New York City, obviously. So you have Nassau and Suffolk County. It's probably going to be a little bit less than that. But here's what I was thinking about as well. So let's play that one out. So let's say if you want to save a little bit of money on the rent, right, and you want to head out to Long Island, so Nassau or Suffolk County, like you were saying. Well, think about it like this. You know, what are your added costs of doing that? Maybe you have to travel or commute into the city. That could be $300 to $400 a month if you have to take the Long Island Railroad. Or if you drive in, I mean, the price of gas is almost $5 a gallon in New York. So I think it's going to get you one way or another. But it's definitely not cheap by any means. Definitely not cheap by any means. And the crazy thing is that as people are starting to go back to work finally, this is when we have these crazy, crazy prices in terms of commodities prices. Wow, did you guys see that huge burst of lightning over there? Let me see if I could adjust the camera so you guys could see it. Hey, Roy S. says, hey Tom, thank you for the newsletter. Extremely informative as usual. Hey, Roy S., thank you so much, my friend. I am glad you liked it. Let me try to adjust this here. Oh, we got it. But yeah, so Roy S. and everybody, so if you check your email, you should have received, I believe it's the 22nd issue of the Behind the Street newsletter. So feel free to check your email. And it should be in your email box. If it's not in there, it's probably in a spam folder or something like that. But I did send out the Behind the Street newsletter Tuesday at 9 p.m. or 9 o'clock at night. So please, please check that out. But yeah, what I was saying is it's a little crazy that now that people are going back to work, it just seems at a very odd time, because now the price of gas is crazy when everybody has to commute back in, which is nuts. T. Campbell says, just bought one of your book recommendations this morning. Can't wait to read it. Hey, T. Campbell, that's awesome. So what T is talking about, in this week's issue of the Behind the Street newsletter, I gave out my top 5 book recommendations for investing and just life in general. So if you want to check out those 5 book recommendations, please check out the Behind the Street newsletter. Lynn Hyatt says, hey Tom, thank you. I received my newsletter. Awesome, Lynn. Let me know how you like it. I'm just trying to make sure the lightning is off in the distance. I think it is. It's supposed to be a little bit of a heat lightning and passing storm today. You know, in Miami, especially now, this is our rainy season, we always have every day, but it usually lasts for about an hour, maybe 2 hours, and then it clears up. So I think this is our nightly storm for the day. Hey, the Mighty Bull is here. Says greetings to moderators and friends. Good to see you, the Mighty Bull. Always a pleasure. Soho guys, says Tom. People will take a 20% cut and pay not to commute. Yeah, because of gas. I mean, things are really crazy in Soho. I'm not sure if you just jumped in here, but one of our viewers sent me a really nice article. So if you guys ever want to send me articles that we should talk about on the streams, feel free to do that, please. But just in New York City rent, the median rent in New York City is now almost $4,000. So the reason why that's a little bit of a concern, for obvious reasons, if we want to talk about the 40 times rule. So obviously if you want to apply for an apartment in New York City, generally speaking, you need to make 40 times the rent, right? So based on that factor, if you're not going to have a guarantor or something like that, you need to make about, $150,000 to $160,000 just to get a simple one-bedroom apartment. That's an unaffordability crisis right there, everybody. That's really, really crazy. And now I know New York City has always been expensive, but we've never seen price increases like this before. We've never seen crazy price increases like this before. Just the sheer velocity. So just to give you an idea, we are up about 31.9% year over year. So rents are up in New York City 31.9% year over year. So in order to make that 40 times rent rule, you need to make about $157,000, assuming that you don't have roommates or anything like that. So if you're just a single person, you want to have a one-bedroom apartment in New York City with no guarantor or no roommates, that's the going rate. That's what it's going to have to be, which is a little crazy. But I believe the cheapest thing in Manhattan, I was looking, if you want to move into a studio, which isn't even a one-bedroom. So let's just talk about a studio for a second. If you get a studio apartment in New York City right now, the median rent in Manhattan is $2,850. So $2,850, that is up 28.4% year over year. So if we do the calculation again, based upon the 40 times rule, you would need to make about $114,000 a year simply just to move into a studio apartment. Kind of crazy, everybody. Hey, Brian Forrest is here. Good to see you, Brian. Hopefully you're doing well. Rob Case is about $100 an hour. Good to see you, Rob. Hey, Fernando is here. Good to see you, Fernando. Hopefully you're having a good day. Sunshine After Rain, welcome. Wendy England, what's up? Hey, Paranormal Witness Girl is here. Long time no see. Looks like something is going on here. A lot of police activity down here. Paranormal Witness Girl, I'm doing really good. I actually just left the office here, the WeWork office, coming downstairs. It was a productive day, really nice day today. But now I think we're gonna hit a little bit of a rain and thunderstorm here in downtown Miami. So it may start to come down pretty crazy. Yes, Fernando's like they're looking for me. Fernando, always good to see you. Hopefully you can get back to Miami soon. Soho says, Tom, my 650 square foot loft went from $6,500 to $14,000 a month. Really? I mean, that seems a little crazy. But wow, I mean, if you can get that, more power to you. Insane. Hey, Gregory, good to see you. SD Rob, good to see you, my friend. Hopefully you are well. Roy S is here. Who else do we got? What's next? Good to see you. The Mighty Bull says following the leader. Good to see you. Yeah, Gregory's like, so $3K rent, 40 times, you need to make about $120,000 a year And I think that's why many people in New York choose to live with roommates. But it's not just exclusive to New York City. I've heard of crazy, crazy stories, especially here in downtown Miami in Brickell, of people actually paying 12 months rent up front just to win the deal. I mean, that's insane. Hey, Sabrina Fair is here. Good to see you. Sabrina Fair says, in 2009, we paid for the privilege of living in the pre-studio of San Francisco in a duplex with a full basement for $4,500 a month. It now rents for $9,000. Jeez. That's insane. I mean, you know, I understand that if you need to be in the city, if you need to live there for work and things like that, you know, some people do cough up, you know, $4,000 a month. But I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think I would just look to buy something outside of the city. I don't know. I could never. It's just like a psychological thing for me. If I'm going to spend, you know, almost $5,000 a month on rent, you know, I'll just maybe move out of the city temporarily and buy something and then maybe Airbnb it or rent it out or something like that. I don't know. Really crazy times we're living in, everybody. Hey, Perry is here. Says, hey, Tom. Good to see you, Perry. Hopefully you're well. Brian Forrest is here. Hey, Joe Hernandez. Welcome. Good to see you, my friend. Thank you for the welcome back to Florida. Much appreciated. I see I Revis in the chat. Good to see you, I Revis. Hopefully you're doing well. Adrian says, hi, sir. Love from Baltimore, Maryland. Well, thank you for being here. Thank you for joining. We are here in downtown Miami on Southeast 2nd Street. We're going to be walking over the bridge today. Wendy England says, so many do not live in the city. They commute. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people commute from Long Island, New Jersey, sometimes even Connecticut and upstate New York. So you're definitely right on that. I wonder what's going on. This is like... That was the third cop car I think we saw. The ABX girl says, I know several people who are planning to leave the United States for Mexico, and Portugal is very popular for Americans of all ages if you work remotely. So ABX girl, that's so interesting that you say that, because I think I was watching one of those, has anybody ever seen those CNBC interviews where they interview like working people, like everyday people, and they sort of analyze their budgets and things like that? So I was watching one where they did just that. There was a retired lady that has a beautiful, beautiful apartment that she pays like $300 a month for in Mexico. And she lives like a king in Mexico, and it's so beautiful. I had no idea it was that cheap. You know, you can get an apartment for like $300 to $800. I'm gonna try to look and see if I could find that CNBC video, but I think she's a retired school teacher. She moved to Mexico, and she has a beautiful apartment, and she lives very cheaply, really, really cheap. Hey, Sally is here. Good to see you. Michelle McGraw, always a pleasure to have you here. Peter Webley says, no shortage of baby formula in Mexico, says Peter. So speaking of baby formula and babies in general, I'm not sure if anybody had time to read the cover story of Barron's this week. And it was extremely interesting. So here's essentially what it was about. And this is going to be one of the topics for tonight's stream anyway, so we might as well talk about it now. So essentially, since the pandemic happened, there's been a massive, massive backlog for weddings. I think for obvious reasons, right? You can't have a wedding when there's a global pandemic. So now there's like an overwhelming amount of planned weddings for 2022 and 2023. So much so that a lot of the photographers and wedding planners and venues, they're all booked up. They won't even take new reservations or new appointments. But here's something more interesting than that. So they were talking about how over the next 20 years, the United States is going to run into a serious, serious problem in terms of population decline. I wonder what's going on. Let's see. Maybe it's a fire or something. Hold on, I'll tell you guys about the article in a minute. I just want to see what's coming. Wow. Yeah, everybody's like, it sounds like New York City tonight in Miami. That's true. RJ is like, yeah, Tom, it sounds like New York City. It does, really does. And I noticed the Miami Tower is not lit up tonight for whatever reason. So anyway, check this out, everybody. So the United States fertility rate has fallen since 2008, reaching an all-time record low of about 56 births per 1,000 women. So 5 years after World War II, just for comparison, there was about 106 births per 1,000 women. So we've essentially cut that in half, fallen off a cliff. And so they were interviewing a lot of these soon-to-be newlyweds that are going to get married, because there's a massive, massive backlog of people that are getting married, obviously due to the pandemic. And an overwhelming amount of the respondents to the Barron's survey says that they don't plan on having any kids at all. So I think this is a really, really big problem for a couple reasons. If we look at what happened to Japan with their aging population, they pretty much have stagnated economic growth. If we look at South Korea, it's gotten so bad that the government is actually giving incentives and payments to encourage people to start to have children, but to no avail. But I think it's pretty obvious as to why people are reluctant to having kids, especially nowadays. And I think it's just because everything is so expensive. There was a statistic that came out last weekend in the Wall Street Journal that says to raise a kid from about the time it was born to about 21 years old, it's going to cost about $268,000. Let's check out what's going on over here. Hope everybody's all right. Revis says, Tom, it's a big responsibility to have children. Yeah, it is. Definitely is. But think about that. Let's say if you're going to move to New York City, you got to spend $4,000 on rent. How is it going to be possible to spend money on a kid? And so the overwhelming amount of the respondents on the Barron's article said the same exact thing. They're like, economic uncertainty, not enough job opportunities, and lack of savings, right? How are we possibly going to expect newlyweds to have children and continue the population growth if we can't even afford to pay rent? It's really wild times. The ABX girl says, hey Tom, daycare in my area, North Carolina, is about $1,500 per month. No sibling discount, and rent for a 2-bedroom is $2,000 per month. Wow. Yeah, so that's another thing, ABX girl. I think the United States is one of the countries that doesn't provide childcare, right? So if we think about, if we want, hold on, let me just cross here. I want to make sure I'm not going to get caught in the whatever's going on here. I don't know what it is, but Hold on, let's check this out for a second, everybody. Ooh, I think it was an accident. Unfortunately, I'll try to zoom in. Joan, no. But yeah, so the ABX girl, you're right. I mean, you know, it's very hard to have a kid, especially if you now have to provide daycare. You know, let's say if both parents are working, you know, who's going to take care of the child? That's another added expense. So you're 100% spot on with that. Alfonso says, no children for you, Tom. Wow, Michelle McGraw's like, I raised 3 kids, I don't know how. Yeah, I mean, I give you a ton of credit. I give mothers a ton of credit, and fathers. Don Smith says, in the world is making babies like the Fed is printing cash. Therese Roberts says, you can't get a studio in New York City for $2,000 monthly. Yeah, so I think the median rent for a studio in New York City is $2,800, I believe. Yeah, so the new data that just came out, so a median rental for a studio in New York City is $2,850. That's up 28% year over year. So if it's just going to be you living in the studio, if you're a single guy or girl moving to New York City, you want to rent the apartment on your own, you're going to need to make a minimum of $114,000 a year if you want to be able to meet that 40% rule, or 40 times the rent. Hey, the RT440 says, so Tom, it sounds like you want the government to provide childcare, free college, and healthcare rather than have CEOs making $50 million per year. We finally agree. RT440 is hilarious. I mean, you have a good point, right? I mean, it's definitely a big problem that we need to address, RT440, to your point. Because we can't ignore the fact that if the population in the United States continues to decline, we could go the same way as like Japan. You know, look at the Japanese stock market right now. I think from the highs, what is that? Hold on. I think from its all-time record high, we are just now getting back to record highs in the Japanese stock market. And many economists are saying it's due to stagnant GDP growth or economic growth because of population decline. So there's a huge aging population in Japan, and there's not enough new kids or new people being born to sustain, which is really crazy. And I think there's something like, in order to sustain population in the United States, every single woman needs to have at least 1.2 kids. And right now we are having like 0.6. So definitely really something to get serious and think about for sure. Don Smith's is Coffin Hotels World. The ABX girl says even Canada and some South African nations. Roy S. says someone is blessed asking Tom personal matter tonight. Obsessed with asking Tom personal matters tonight, yeah. The ABX girl says, Tom, other countries doing they are fine, like Scandinavian as well. Yeah, but so we could get down that rabbit hole as well. So Scandinavian countries tend to be very homogenous societies. So it's difficult to do it on as a diverse country or same size and scale in terms of GDP size as US. But I see your point for sure. Hey, Demtix is here. Says, hey Tom, it's been a while. Good to see you, Demtix. Hopefully you're well. Yeah, I'm curious as to what this may be. Maybe someone can look it up on the news, but I think it's probably just a car accident or something. But we were outside the JW Marriott Marquis in New York, in downtown Miami. But I wanted to give you guys two pieces of information. So number one, if you want to check out that article about the median rents in New York City, if you type !NYC in the chat, the Nightbot will drop the link so you guys could read it. I know I get a lot of emails about people saying, hey, I'm moving to New York. I want to know the inside scoop on where the best places are to get an apartment. I think that article is really going to help you out. So please type !NYC in the chat. Oh my God, no way. Jeez. Shop by Scott says, hey Tom, a male jumped off the 20th floor. Oh my God, dude. All right, so we'll not film that out of respect. I didn't know that. Man, that is so horrible. Hey, NG is here. It says, good night, everybody. Good to see you, NG. This is the City National Bank building, or the Miami Tower. Man. Drops as my home cost $39,000 in 1999. Yeah. Yeah, well, you know, going back to our first conversation, damn, Scott, that's horrible, horrible, horrible. But yeah, I mean, going back to our first conversation in relation to the rents and the Barron's cover story about, you know, people choosing to not have kids, I think it's because of that exact reason, right? So somebody just said in the chat, hey, I bought my house in 1999 for $39,000. I think the average starter home now is like $450. Right? I think the median single family home price right now is probably like $390, $380. So we're walking over the bridge, and it's just starting to rain here now. Hey, NMB 045, what's up? This is Tom. I saw a billboard on 34th Street that said the average income in Manhattan is $170,000 a year. In Manhattan. You know, that may be true. In Manhattan, yes. That may be true. I think the average or the median income in New York City is, I think, $79,000. I could be mistaken, but in Manhattan, that does sound correct, actually. Hey, Lila is here. This is almost $400K here in Augusta, Georgia. Who can afford this here with the wages they pay? Yeah, I mean, you know, you're not wrong. It's insane. I mean, even, you know, just to give you some perspective here in Miami, you know, pretty much anywhere now, if you want to get a starter home, let's just call it, you know, 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms. Is that like a normal starter home, I guess? A single family? You're definitely not going to find anything for less than $400, right? I think if the home needs no work at all, you're probably going to wind up spending maybe $450 to $500 if the home needs absolutely no work. Peter Webley is here. Says Nebraska has 2% unemployment and $140,000 homes. Good to see you, Peter Webley. Hey, Nicole is here. What's up, Nicole? Says, hey, everybody. Good to see you. Nicole, it's just starting to rain here in downtown Miami. Wendy England says, you can afford kids. You just need to give up a lot of other things. People no longer want to do that. Yeah, that's true. Well, it was crazy because obviously with the pandemic, nobody could get married for obvious reasons. So the Barron's article was like, out of everybody they were interviewing, such as wedding planners, venue halls, and things like that, they're all booked out, and their prices have gone through the roof. But what's interesting is you would think that there's a direct correlation. You would think that there's some sort of correlation between marriages, so more people getting married. You would think the correlation would be, okay, more people getting married, which now means more people are going to start having kids. It's actually not the case. So out of the survey that Barron's actually did, it's quite the opposite. So people are choosing now to get married, but they're choosing not to have kids. And the main three reasons was, number one, the cost of living. So a lot of people don't want to have kids and live in an apartment. They want to be able to afford a home or a house for them, which I totally understand. Number two is the cost of educating your kids. So let's play through this. CNBC came out with a statistic, or I think it was Wall Street Journal, over the weekend that said to raise a kid from age, I think, obviously when it's born to, I think it was either 18 or 21, excluding college costs, it's about $260,000, excluding college. So let's say if you have two kids and you educate your kids, you send them both to school, assuming that they don't get any scholarships or things like that, a private school, you're probably going to be looking to pay a tuition bill of at least 20 grand a year, right? So I could definitely see why a lot of Gen Z and millennials are concerned, and I think for good reason. And the last sort of concern that they voiced on the Barron's article was that there's was for childcare. A lot of women now are extremely educated and they work full time, and they don't want to have to give up their careers to stay home. Hold on, there's always people that drive 1,000,000 miles an hour here. And they said they don't want to necessarily have to give up their careers in order to stay home with the kids, which I totally understand. So the big problem is childcare. In that, okay, if you're going to have kids, it's going to be really, really difficult for both parents to stay home, right? So they're either doing one of two things, either going into debt to pay for that childcare, or a lot of people are having children a lot later in life, right, as their careers are more established, which I totally understand. But from an economic perspective, it's extremely dangerous to the health of the U.S. Making direct correlations between currently as well. Hey, Thomas says, wow, or Tomas says, wow, what hotel are you walking through? So I think this is the W Hotel. So this is the parking lot in the W Hotel. Teresa Roberts says, why can't the man stay? Questions when they were interviewing. So if you look at if you go to barrons.com and you read the cover story, so that's a good question. You're like, well, why can't the guy stay home? Why can't the girl stay home? Well, here's why. It goes back to the first point and the first objection at the beginning of the article, which said the cost, right? So a lot of the times you can make it financially feasible to have a kid if both parents are working, right? But it's very hard to do on one income. And the objection there is that they don't want to pay for childcare, because that could be upwards of $1,500 to $200 or to $2,000 a month, which is kind of crazy. All right, so this is the Miami Riverwalk. Beautiful out tonight. So we're looking at the Citibank building. Joan, let's keep it. Let's relax on the questions for a minute. Tomas Rodriguez is Bayside. Yeah, so we're close to Bayside. Bayside would be, I think, back. Which hotel is it? I think it's a very famous hotel here. Tish TV says, why is gas so expensive? Yeah, well, I think we could go down that rabbit hole as well, but I think you're right. It's, I think as of recording this video, crude oil is now over $120. But you know, it's actually not too bad tonight. One of the things that I noticed about the water here, though, is the current is extremely, extremely strong tonight. And I think that's because we had this huge flooding and rainstorm at the beginning of the week. Hey, James Brumley is here. Says the gas prices were going up during Bush's era. Yeah, I really don't think it has to do with necessarily too much with to blame it on one president. We've talked about this a lot on the streams, but I think it has to do with our energy independence. And just miscalculations in Washington from both Republicans and Democrats. I mean, I've been writing about this for a long time in the Behind the Street newsletter as well. I understand that you want to transition to green energy, which is fine. I think everybody does. But you can't shut down our cleanest energy producer or resource we have, which is nuclear power. So we're shutting down nuclear power plants in the United States, which are some of the cleanest, literally the cleanest forms of energy or power production in the world, right at a time when Russia and other parts of the world are ramping oil production. And so what that turns out to be is higher prices here in the United States. And the funny thing is, the European Union is actually buying oil from Russia at the same time when we are sanctioning them, which is a little bit interesting. Wow, check out that lightning strike, everybody. Insane. James Brumley says gas is going to be $10 next year. Well, I think it's almost $10 in some parts of the United States already. Yeah, Sky Mateo says it looks like the tide is going out. Well, every time we have a huge rainstorm here in Miami, it usually takes about, I don't know, I'd say 48 hours for all the floodwaters to rush out, and it looks exactly like what's happening now. James says, yeah. Trace Roberts, agreed. Hey, what's next is all of this solar they claim to exist doesn't and may never exist. You can't have full-time electrical consumption without part-time generation. Agreed. And I think that's, a lot of this, and we've been talking about this a lot of this ESG stuff and, all green, I'm doing air quotes here, energy push is a lot of just political malice. In my view, I think it's a lot of politicians just placating to their base. There's no question that everybody wants greener production of energy. But I think, it's easier to just say, oh, oil and gas companies are bad, they're the boogeyman, because you just want to get reelected. On both sides as well. There was a really good article in the Wall Street Journal about 2 months ago explaining in detail why the power infrastructure in the United States is deteriorating. So if you type !power, POWER, in the chat, the Nightbot will actually drop a link to that article. And it was really, really well written. I wish I could give the author of the article a quick shout out, but I forget her name, but it was a really, really well put together piece. Extremely good. Hey, Sparks Carnival, good to see you, my friend. Bernard Friedman is here, good to see you. Hey, Chris Beeman is here. What's up, Chris? Chris, send me the email whenever you finish your resume. Let me know. Amy R says, how is the U.S. legally seize foreign assets from Russian oligarchs legally? Could you rephrase that? How could they illegally seize them legally? 48 is here. Says, good evening, Tom. Good to see you, 48. Hopefully you're well, my friend. Yeah, Wendy England says, have hydropower here in British Columbia, 87%, in fact. It's good up here. You know, I think there's a lot of stuff. So Don Smith, in relation to the crypto bill, I know you've posted that a couple times there. So I think one of the things that is a big issue when it comes to Bitcoin mining, right, and we've talked about this ad nauseum on the stream as well, is they're like, it's not clean, it's not done with green energy. So a lot of the times these big crypto or Bitcoin mining farms, what they'll do to stay compliant and to stay quote unquote carbon neutral is they'll just buy carbon offsets, right? And I won't go into detail what carbon offsets are. We've done it on multiple other streams, but essentially it's all BS, right? And the SEC knows that. And it's not just the Bitcoin mining industry, it's everybody. They'll just say, oh, we're carbon neutral and we're so green, our company is so green, when literally they're just buying carbon offsets, which is, you know, you'll build a mangrove or something like that, which is not going to fly anymore, in my opinion. I think the SEC is really going to crack down on all of these carbon offsets or purchases of carbon offsets and carbon credits. So what I think is going to happen, which would be fantastic for the Bitcoin mining industry, is go build turbines on all of these water sources in upstate New York and parts of Canada and generate not only clean power, 100% clean hydropower via these turbines, but these Bitcoin mining companies that have all of this excess cash, they'll build the turbines to do it because they'll be mining Bitcoin, making a profit, and they could actually sell some 100% clean energy back to the grid. So I think that's a good idea. You know, I wrote about that in the Behind the Street newsletter. Kevin O'Leary, which is the CEO of O'Leary Funds, actually thinks that's a fantastic idea as well. You know, because there's so much unused and wasted hydropower. So if you can, you know, have a multifaceted approach, number one, we could use the power to mine Bitcoin, so the government doesn't have to pay for this stuff. It'll be private enterprises like Bitcoin mining farms to build these turbines to generate hydropower to mine Bitcoin. But then at the same time, they could actually sell that power to the grid, which is a pretty innovative solution. Stephanie says, Tom, hydropower is a farce. Chris Beeman, good to see you. Herbert says, I'm answering the question about asset seizure. The LT Prod says, hey, Tom, nobody encourages... Oh, was that a... I think we got something in the water, everybody. Right here. I think it was a dolphin that just jumped out. Let's see where he is. Hey, Samantha J is here. So good evening, Tom and everybody. Welcome. Roy S is Tom apologized for the one-on-one question. Do you think it's possible for an economic downturn will affect cryptocurrencies? Yeah, absolutely. Cryptocurrencies are a very risk-on asset, right? So as the Federal Reserve raises interest rates and start quantitative tightening, those are really the first assets to get hammered, to get clocked. There's many economists and many analysts, though, that are expecting a decoupling or a correlation to decouple between the beta of the NASDAQ and the beta of cryptocurrencies, because they usually tend to move in tandem. But yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I think that's not a one-on-one question at all. Usually risk assets get dumped during times of quantitative tightening as opposed to times of quantitative easing. But you're 100% right. But I did write about that a little bit. If you guys want to check it out, for those of you who were just joining, you should have the Behind the Street newsletter in your mailbox now. If you don't, please check your spam folder. Hey, Karina Thompson is here. Good to see you, Karina Thompson. Welcome. Don Smith says the Senate bill makes crypto a commodity. Yeah, so Don Smith, I think I have a couple objections with that. I think that number one, first and foremost, the SEC, Gary Gensler and his crew, need to come out with more concrete, dedicated clarity on regulatory oversight for cryptocurrencies. Because if they don't, you're going to continue to have these Terra Luna events and all this craziness. But if you regulate it normally, not to stifle free enterprise and free markets, but regulate it just to how the equities market is regulated, well, now you could actually have real institutional investment into the institutional investment. I'm not just talking about hedge funds. I'm talking about which have by billions. Hold on, let me wipe the camera. It's raining out a little bit. James, I saw that PayPal is taking crypto now. Melee says, good evening from Scranton, Pennsylvania, and hey Tom, good to see you, Melee. Yeah, so this is a nice restaurant here. This location right here also has some crazy real estate prices in terms of studio apartments, in terms of one-bedroom apartments. I really don't think you'll be able to get anything for a one-bedroom less than, I don't know, let's say $3,200, $3,300 down here. Hey, Michelle Henry says, hey Tom, how was your day? My day was really good. Very busy day. I stayed almost all day at the office. But things are going good. Deals are working. I'm going to be doing a lot more business travel, which is good. Hey, Freshly Allen is here. Says, hey Tom, I'll be down there on Friday. Awesome, dude. Hey, XOXX Bob says, this is Brickell. Yes, it is. And then right across the water here is Brickell Key. Now, I've been talking to a lot of my friends who have been looking for places down here. The peak we all have of Brickell Key is that it's a little bit secluded. So if you look at this bridge over here, this is really the only point of entry and exit to Brickell Key. So it sort of feels like you're secluded, even though you're still near all the action. I don't know, it just seems a little bit too far away from all the shops and everything. Wow, check out that lightning strike, insane. You guys are saying a bit of buffering in the area. Hey, Kim is here. Good to see you, Kim. Ryan Royals, it's good to see the lights reflecting off the water. All right, let's head over here. Maybe it won't be as buffery. Hey, Tish TV, good to see you. This is Paradise. So here we have the Bank of America Tower right here. In Florida, it says, hello, how is the price established during a short sale restriction? Who establishes the premium fee to borrow a stock that is on short sale restrictions? This is a retired guy in Florida. I'm not sure. A guy, or retired in Florida. I think we are buffering a little bit. Here, let me try to walk over here to see if we stop buffering. All right, guys, what about now? All right, I think we may be a little better here. Yeah, but somebody was asking, what do I think about Apple getting into buy now, pay later? I think that's going to be a really big issue for companies like Affirm and all the other ones that are money-losing companies, by the way. You know, there was a funny meme that was out on Twitter that essentially said that Apple's Developers Day, which was yesterday, pretty much put a ton of startups out of business. So any single innovative thing that any startup was doing, Apple pretty much announced that they're going to do it themselves. So I think that's going to be huge. But there's also something that concerns me a little bit about the buy now, pay later stuff. Because to me, that forecasts that a lot of these large corporations do not, how am I going to word this? A lot of these large corporations do not have faith in the health of the U.S. consumer. I mean, if you need to break up a cost of, you know, a $200, $300 product over 3 payments, I mean, that's a little bit concerning. So a lot of this buy now, pay later stuff is a little bit concerning to me, but it's sort of like once one of these companies go into business to offering those services, you're going to have competitors, right? It's sort of like when Amazon got into cloud hosting via AWS, you know, a lot of the others had to get in as well, like Microsoft Azure and Google's Google Cloud. You know, I think we actually did an entire stream on the whole buy now, pay later stuff. But I mean, yeah, it just seems like anything that Apple gets its hands on, they tend to dominate. So, but that has been Apple's main play, right? I mean, a lot of people are like, Apple has more cash on its balance sheet than some country's entire GDP or economic output. I mean, if you want to think about it like that, it's true. And Apple doesn't make any acquisitions. Apple very, very rarely buys businesses. They'd rather keep it all in-house. James says, buy now, pay later is like a license to print money with the fees they can charge. Yeah, that's true. And I think, so James, I think there's very strict protocols with that as well. If you're even like a day late on one of those payments, they call, well, I guess you could say call the loan. It's not really a loan. And they slam you with these crazy, crazy, egregious fees. So to your point, it is a little wild, but I don't know. I think any type of new innovative solution tends to be frowned upon at first, but I don't know. It just seems like there's another way every single day for people to, or for businesses to give people the option to subsidize or amortize over longer and longer periods. Hey, Buy the Book is here. Good to see you, Buy the Book. Sparks Carnival says government watchdogs are now watching buy now, pay later, as well over accumulating debt, regulatory arbitrage, and data harvesting and consumer credit market already quickly changing with technology. Yeah, so I think Zoom Info is also running up against some problems in relation to data privacy as well. Michelle McGraw, thank you so much. Says, I think your lens is smeared. Sparks Carnival says, completely agree, Tom. I think there's some data privacy concerns as well. Yeah, Ryan Royal says, I read that credit card debt is nearing highs. You're right. Justin Beasley, convenience factor is what I'm getting at. Hey, Rob DeCaro says, hey Tom, are you seeing the Special Olympics athletes from USA Game in Orlando, Florida for the Special Olympics? I'm not, but I would like to check that out though. I'm in Miami, Florida, so Miami is quite a distance away from Orlando, but that sounds cool, man. But no, I have not seen that. So I am all the way in southern Florida, Miami. Orlando is a ways up, so I'm definitely not near that. Hey Marilyn, good to see you. So Marilyn, we were actually just talking about your article that you sent me. I think it was you who sent me the article about the rental prices in New York City. So we were just talking about the median rental price for a one-bedroom apartment in New York City is approaching $4,000 now. So $3,975 to be exact, which is crazy. So if we want to talk about the 40 times rule or the 40x rule, that means a single person, if you're not going to live with roommates or not going to have a guarantor or anything like that, you're going to need to make about $160,000 a year to afford to get into a one-bedroom apartment. Really, really crazy. Really, really crazy. But people are paying for it, and people are actually bidding and are in competition for these types of deals as well. So thank you for sending me that. I know a studio apartment is almost just as competitive in New York as well. NMB 045 says, Tom, another reason we're not having kids is that the internet is killing our motivation to go out and meet people at restaurants and bars. So do you think that there's a correlation to that? I'm not sure. That could be interesting to explore, though. I think that could be interesting to explore for sure. So you're saying that based upon technology, people are more reluctant to go out and meet people. I think perhaps, but here's what I will say. I think there could be an argument, and NMB 045, fantastic thought by the way, very thought-provoking comment. But I also think there's a side of the argument where we could say people are probably interacting with each other more than ever before, if you think about it. Because you can essentially send a text message or join a Facebook group or a YouTube channel or whatever and speak to people from all over the world. But I understand what you mean in terms of that face-to-face, in-person. But I don't know. I don't know if there's a correlation with that and having kids. There could be. There very well could be. But from the respondents in the Barron's article, it all had to do in relation to economic uncertainty and finances, which I totally understand. Yeah, Lilo says yes, but not in person. Yeah, you're right. You're right. I would love to see a study done on that. Ren 10's like, Tom, would you ever have kids? Yeah, potentially. Potentially. Okay, I think we're gonna have a shorter than normal stream, everybody, because the rain is coming down rather crazy. So I'll take you guys back to the bus stop and we'll continue the conversation tomorrow. But the two main topics for the stream was the real estate market in New York City. That's number one. Number two, we talked about the economic uncertainty of a declining birth rate in the United States, which could pose a problem and a risk to our financial markets. Because if we think about what happened in Japan, what's going on in China right now, and even in South Korea, where the government's actually enticing young people to have children by giving them all different types of subsidies and cash payments, but it's still not happening. People are still not having enough kids to sustain the population and continue to drive that GDP growth. So as we start to see a lot more baby boomers retiring and a lot more people retiring from their jobs, you're going to need people to fill those gaps. So there could be even a wider gap in underemployment. So really interesting to think about. If you type in !NYC in the chat, the Nightbot will drop the link to the article that Marilyn was so nice to let us know about. And if you type !, I forget what the Nightbot command was. I gotta remember here for a second. !PMI. So !PMI. It's going to drop the ISM manufacturing report that comes out on the first business day of every single month. That will give us a forecast into the health of the U.S. manufacturing sector. So please check that out. Really good pieces of information there. As we are walking past the Whole Foods here in downtown Miami. And when you guys click the link to check out the ISM PMI report, the most important part of the report is the responses of the respondents. So take a read through, and you can get a glimpse into, what's going on in the papers manufacturing market, the plastics, all these different types of sectors in the manufacturing sector of the economy. And it's important because it makes up about 20% of all economic activity in the United States. So there's about an 85% correlation between the growth in that PMI number, right? So any reading over 50 signals a growth in the manufacturing sector of the United States. So there's an 85% correlation between growth in the manufacturing sector and performance of the S&P 500. So it's extremely important that we pay attention to those two. Dutchman says time check, 10 p.m. Thank you, Dutchman. Hey, Jesse says glad you're back, Tom. Thank you, Jesse. All right, we'll cross the street. I'm not sure if you guys can see in the distance, but there's a massive American flag right outside the 200 Southeast Financial Center. Mike C says, have we talked about how much the housing market is drying up? Yeah, a little bit. So Mike, you're 100% right. So the demand for mortgages is cratering. But here's the interesting thing. There's actually been a divergence between the demand for mortgages and price. So prices are still crazy elevated, which is nuts. But maybe that is just a temporary factor. I would like to see housing prices come down, but then again, inventory is still at record lows. But I think inventory did creep up a little bit, and now we have about 9 months of supply, I think. But inventory is slowly but surely creeping up. But it seems like people are more reluctant to sell their homes nowadays, especially that we consider that rent is so expensive. So I'll just give you an example in my life, right? So I just recently purchased a home, and I think my monthly payment is a little under $1,700. I have to go take a look at it. And to me, that is a steal, right? I mean, I could have a roof over my head, 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a backyard, and I don't have to pay $4,300 a month for a 1-bedroom apartment. So in my eyes, I'm like, I'm never selling this house. And I think a lot of people that may be nearing their retirement age, that may want to sell their house to downgrade or downsize, they're also reluctant to selling because they're just gonna have to go right back out into this white hot housing market and try to buy something, which could be a real problem. So I think it's a very, very unique time, and with all the economic uncertainty, it's continuously driving this very unique situation we have. But as interest rates, that 30-year fixed rate mortgage is now over 5% for the first time since 2011. I think the last time I checked it was about 5.25%. So should we hit 6 or 7%? Maybe. Hopefully that'll cool the housing market off a little bit, so it'll allow people to actually get into the market and acquire assets as opposed to just the very wealthy. Yeah, so Dutchman makes a really good comment too. He says, with price of homes not coming down and the rise in interest rates are putting many beyond the ability to qualify. Yeah, so the affordability is falling off a cliff. You're 100% right. It is not affordable at all. All right, but guys, we will have to cut this one short. I promise we will be back with a 2+ hour stream tomorrow, but it is raining. and I didn't bring my umbrella, but if you want to connect with us on the Behind the Street newsletter, if you scan the QR code, it'll bring you to the link where I will send you a free financial newsletter covering everything we talk about on the stream. So from US equities markets, the emerging markets, we talk about the housing market, cryptocurrencies, fixed income. If you want to sign up to be on that mailing list for free, I send it out every single Tuesday after the market closes. So please join us over there. I think we have over 1,000 people that are signed up. So I hope you guys are enjoying it. Let me know any critiques, comments, or concerns, and give me some suggestions about what you want to see me talk about or write about in the Behind the Street newsletter. We are always open for suggestions, so please scan the QR code, join us over there. But until next time, everybody, we will be live tomorrow, 8:30 Eastern Standard Time. I may not be able to stream on Friday. I may have to go back to New York City, as crazy as that sounds, but we'll keep in touch, and I'll see you tomorrow. So Mike C, thank you. Joan, Jean, appreciate it. Fred X, Wendy, England, much appreciated. Sally, the ABX girl, Lee Lou, Mike M, Brandy, thank you. Michelle McGraw, all of our great moderators, Wendy, England, Dutchman, Sunshine After Rain, much appreciated. Mike C, thank you. James, Matthew, Don, thank you so much. And to the Mighty Bull, have a good night wherever you are, because there is always a bull market somewhere, and you just need to know where to look. If you enjoyed the stream, leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you are new. We'll see you guys tomorrow, 8:30 Eastern Standard Time in the Magic City.